live on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and blasttheradio.com. This is The Lowell Green Show. The number to call and be heard around the world is 613-413-2217. Or email Lowell at blasttheradio.com. And now, here is Lowell Green.
Thank you. So, you're aware, I hope, that these so-called sanctions against Russia are nothing but a giant farce, a smokescreen for the West to do essentially bugger all. The truth is that the Ukrainian crisis has helped to inflate world oil and gasoline prices, which in turn is making Russia even richer. Far from damaging the Russian economy, the sale of oil and gas to Europe is pumping billions more into Russian pockets. Every increase in the world price of gasoline and oil pumps more blood money into Putin's bloody pockets. That's a fact. Think about it. Europe must still buy Russian oil and gas. They must pay world prices. World prices are leapfrogging. The leapfrog goes back to Russia. Billions and billions of extra dollars. One of the problems, of course, is that Russia supplies several European countries, Germany, for example, with a large portion of the oil and gas that they require. Now, the Ukrainian president, one of the few heroes in all of this, has begged the West, has begged Europe to cut off Russian supplies, but, and you can understand this, Europe can't do it. I mean, Germany, for example, gets about 40% of its oil, about 30% of its gas from Russia. If they were to shut that off, where would they get the replacement from? Essentially, it would shut the country down. The same would hold true for several other European countries. So they say, look, we're stuck. We're stuck with Russian oil and Russian gas. And we're stuck with world prices. And the higher, I repeat, the higher the world prices, the more money we pump into Russia's pockets. So we are left with a situation whereby the more sanctions that we impose, the higher we push the cost of oil and gas, and thus the more money we stuff into Putin's pockets. He's laughing all the way to the bank. Small wonder that he's taking his time to destroy Ukraine. I suspect that this is planned. I mean, if we use our brains, I think you have to agree that if he wanted to, Putin could pretty well wipe Ukraine out in a day or two. I mean, have a look at the numbers involved, the armor involved. But the longer that Putin can drag this out, the higher he can push world prices, and the more money comes into his pocket. Meantime, we in the West pretend that we're actually doing something. We won't even bring in Ukrainian refugees, for God's sake. We've put delays on that. And then there is Canada, our country, home to one of the world's largest supplies of natural gas and oil in the ground. Enough natural gas, enough oil to supply all the needs of Europe. If we could get our natural gas and our oil into Europe, they could tomorrow cut off all Russian supplies, which would seriously damage the Russian economy. About 30% of all the Russian economy is based upon the sale of oil and gas. But we can't get our natural gas, and we can't get our oil to Europe. We can't get a drop of it. Hell's bells, folks. We can't even get our natural gas and our oil to Halifax. Do you realize that only last week the federal government, this radical environmentalist, Stephen Guilbeault, I have deemed him to be the most dangerous man in Canada. Well, second dangerous maybe to Trudeau. He rejected the Saguenay LNG, liquefied natural gas project. He rejected it on environmental grounds. What damage to the environment? Didn't say, didn't matter. Now, let me just briefly explain to you what the Saguenay project was. This was a project to pipe natural gas from Western Canada, employing about 3,000 to 4,000 highly paid jobs. It would include a natural gas pipeline through the Saguenay. It would, if completed, produce 11 million tons of liquefied natural gas every year. This is the Saguenay project alone. This would greatly help Europe. If we had gone ahead with this, because this has been on the books since 2014, and it was turned down by Quebec. There was an appeal, but finally last week the federal government turned it down. This is a $14 billion project, all private money, no government money. Would have employed 3,000 to 4,000 people permanently, as many as 8,000 people while the project was being built, produce 11 million tons of liquefied natural gas, and pump billions and billions of dollars into the Canadian economy, all from Western oil and gas. We turned it down. Why? Because we have a government that wants to kill and is doing everything it can to kill fossil fuels. Trudeau, and even yesterday in Europe, is talking about the climate. Bullets and bombs are flying in Ukraine. The people are suffering, 2 million refugees. And Europe is crying out for some help. In fact, several of the European countries have asked Canada, what can you do? Well, Trudeau hedges around, and Trudeau was talking climate. And he inferred, well, we'll help you. How can we help? We can't get our gas and oil to Halifax. Do you realize that they turned down the Saguenay LNG, liquefied natural gas project, is one of 18 such projects that have been either rejected completely by the Trudeau government or so slowed down that it's pretty well dead in the water. 18 projects to create liquefied natural gas out of the ground, very cleanly done natural gas, much better burning, much cleaner, much better for the environment than coal or almost anything else. But we have refused. We have locked into the ground our oil and natural gas. Why? So that Russia can get richer by supplying oil and gas to Europe while Ukraine is devastated. And our prime minister is over there talking about the climate. Folks, I wish I was making this up. I'm not. Everything I'm telling you here is true. This Saguenay project, can you imagine that? A $14 billion private project. Can you imagine what that have done for the economy of this country? Do we need jobs in this country, high-paid jobs? Do we need more tax revenue? Do we need better health care? Do we need better education? Do we need more social programs? Well, everybody tells me we do. Well, there was $14 billion, 4,000 to 5,000 highly paid jobs, and billions of dollars of tax revenue. Thumbs down from one man, Stephen Guilbeault. Folks, I'm not making this up. If you have any comments on that, please let me know. And I must say that I'm a little surprised that we haven't got more response. I thought that people would really be upset over the fact that we still don't have any Ukrainian refugees. And from what I understand, there's going to even be further delays in getting them over here. We have tiny little countries like, I don't know, they're accepting and they're opening the borders, but we're putting hurdles in their path. And from what I can see, not many Canadians are very concerned about it. This doesn't sound very Canadian to me. You may have some additional thoughts on that. I have another topic here, totally separate from the other one, but I really would like your opinion here. I consider the fact that we turned down Energy East because I want to point out that Energy East would have carried our Western oil through to the Irving refinery, giant refinery, St. John, New Brunswick, and from there it could have been shipped to Europe. That was one of the main purposes. Not only supplied Eastern Canada, but been all sorts of available for export to Europe, which in many cases may have provided enough so that they could shut off Russian supplies. So Trudeau and Guilbeault's decision to kill Energy East, to kill the Saguenay project, to kill essentially Trans Mountain, to kill the Northern Gateway pipeline, all of these decisions, now we are at a situation where not only can we not help the Ukraine, we can't help Europe, we can't even get our oil and gas to Halifax. And John, you have some evidence of this. Your relatives, you have relatives in Nova Scotia.
New Brunswick.
What was the discovery? New Brunswick. What was the discovery that you made?
So, I mean, I've been going there for years and years and years. And of course, there's baseboard heating at the cottage, baseboard heating at the house. And I never really thought much about it until I was talking with Judith Kane, who's Canada's money coach. And she's now living in New Brunswick. And she pointed out that everywhere in the Maritimes is electric heat. Why? Because they cannot get oil or gas to heat their homes. And propane is even difficult to acquire now. So it never dawned on me. For all the years I was going there, it just wasn't even an option for Maritimers.
Well, Energy East would have solved that. But they turned it down as well. I said I had another topic, and I'm going to throw it out because
we do have comments, so when you're ready, we can go to those.
Okay, sure enough.
But throw it out.
I want to throw this out. Can we please remember the great truckers' convoy started out as a perfectly legal, peaceful protest and continued that way for some time. The witch hunt that's underway now against anybody that supported this is disgraceful. Pure politics. Trudeau is mad at the truckers. So the word is out. Anyone who supported the truckers, doesn't matter whether they supported it when it was perfectly legal, peaceful, etc., they are to be persecuted. We even have our interim police chief now saying that he's investigating police officers who supported it. Well, if the police officers supported it after it was declared illegal, that's one thing. No problem, okay? But in all probability, they supported it in the early stages, as did tens of thousands of other people. It was perfectly legal, but we've got a witch hunt. And as you don't agree that's a witch hunt? Let me point something out. We have a judge in this city who was once a Liberal candidate in a federal election. She is now a judge. You don't think there was politics involved in that? This judge decides she is going to refuse bail for a woman who has a minor charge against her, a charge of mischief. She's kept in jail for about 10 days. I want to remind you that we have those who are charged with murder and rape who are granted bail, but not a woman charged with mischief by a judge who was once a Liberal candidate. You don't think politics are involved in this? You don't think this is pure ideology? You don't think this is a witch hunt? Ay, 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 ay. I don't know. John, what have we got coming in now?
All right. The phone number here, 613-413-2217. We love your calls. We appreciate your text to that number as well. We're on Facebook. We are on YouTube. We're on Twitch. And we're on Twitter, wherever you would ordinarily post. Your comments is where you can post them, and we'll get them on the air to Lowell as best I can. All right, we begin with Craig on Facebook. He says, yes to all of what you just said, Lowell. We're in deep doo-doo until we can elect Pierre Poilievre leader of the Conservatives and have him win a majority in our next federal election.
One of the things I'm very interested. Pierre is very active in social media, and he is really pushing this idea that he is going to open this country up to the energy industry. And you know what? It was never more evident than right now how desperately the world needs Canada oil and gas. The world, by the way, includes Canada, includes New Brunswick, could use some Canadian oil and gas, right? Go ahead, please.
I don't understand why we have so much of this resource that the world needs, and we sit on it and we don't sell it. We accumulate debt after debt after debt. If I accumulate debt like that, you know what I'm doing? I have to start selling some of the things I've got.
There's only one reason. Justin Trudeau. He wants to kill the fossil fuel industry. He still believes, after all of the evidence, that the answer is windmills and solar panels. The man, I believe, is close to being certifiable. Go ahead, please.
Let me see. Ray, what did Europe do before getting everything from Russia?
Well, very interesting. That's a good question. Once again, it's not only Canada that swallowed this green energy pill, okay? They did this in Europe as well. Do you realize that Germany actually decommissioned at least one of their nuclear generators and shut down a number of gas-fired plants? That's how they got into this. They thought and many European countries had the same thing. Oh, we'll have renewable energy, so-called renewable energy is windmills. Well, they found out that, geez, sometimes the wind doesn't blow. It's very interesting, and Britain really got caught in this because last year apparently was an all-time record for no wind in Britain. So Britain has not been building gas plants and not been building nuclear. I don't know if they decommissioned any. Germany did, as I said. But so Britain had a hell of a time getting enough energy this year because there was no wind. I mean, it's ludicrous, and Trudeau apparently has, in fact, none of the environmentalists, I guess. And oh, by the way, do you ever notice that the environmentalists are very quiet these days? They've crawled into a little hole someplace. I hope they stay there. Go ahead, John, please.
Michael says, I wish everyone could hear this show. Michael, everyone can hear this show. We could not be on more platforms. Please tell your friends that we are here. BlastTheRadio.com or LowellGreen.com will give you all the links to the show.
We're into Russia.
Yes, we are.
Am I right? We have listeners in Russia.
We've got listeners and to your podcast as well. So if you can't hear the show live, the podcast is pretty much uploaded within 20 minutes or so of the show being done.
Can I just give a message to my Russian listeners?
I
don't know if you're aware of this or not.
Here we go.
But Putin is full of shit. Go ahead.
Okay. A message to Russia. From love. Let me see. They are a bunch of hypocrites placing sanctions on Russia and still buying oil to support the war. Coraline says, never depend on your enemy for anything. On Facebook, David says, meanwhile, Biden is talking to the dictator governments of Iran and Venezuela to get more oil and hasn't even looked to Canada. Trudeau should be on the phone pushing to get Keystone going again. It's already partially built.
Actually, you know what? These are some great comments. Yeah, that's right. This is really, really hilarious. Putin is now on the phone to Iran, which he had always considered to be a terrible enemy. He's begging for oil from Iran. Here is Canada with enough oil to supply all of the United States. I mean, United States can shut down all of its wells. We can provide all of the United States. We have enough here. But he shut down the Keystone pipeline, which would have pumped I don't know how many billions of barrels. And you're right. He's not phoning, as far as I know, he's not phoning Trudeau and say, hey, can you pump up more oil for us down here? We're shutting off Russian supplies, so we need more oil. He's not turning to us. What does that tell you about this country? Go ahead.
Gotta love David. He's gone to the IESO website and posted all the numbers for it today, Lowell, so he's done your homework for you.
Oh, yeah, it's very easy to do.
613-413-2217 is the number. This is a text out of Calgary. My company builds and operates apartment buildings throughout Saskatchewan and Alberta. In 2015, I flew to St. John, New Brunswick to purchase some downtown property. A real estate agent showed me around for 2 days. While I was there, the Liberals swept all 10 ridings in the province that night. That day, I shook the agent's hand, wished her luck, told her Energy East will never be built because of the Liberal majority in her province, and I flew home the next day, and look what happened. No pipeline, nothing. Telling you folks, this Liberal Party has to go. Now we cannot survive in this country.
Well, it's not. One of the tragedies is that not only is it harming Canada, because, I mean, I haven't even talked about the money. Can you just imagine what kind of money would flow into Canada if we were selling liquefied natural gas to Europe and oil? If we'd gone ahead with some of these LNG projects, if we'd gone ahead with Energy East, we could be providing millions of barrels of oil and tons of natural gas. And just think of the money that would flow into this country. Rather, don't you think it would be better to have the money coming into Canada than coming into Russia? Oh, you're an environmentalist. You'd prefer it to go to Russia. Go ahead, please.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Why can we not do both?
Well, because Trudeau says no, they reject. I mean, it was all of the restrictions that Trudeau placed on Energy East that the private company finally said we can't exist with this. Trudeau killed the Northern Gateway pipeline entirely. He's slow, he's so slowed down the Trans Mountain. What is it? 10 years now we've been trying to build Trans Mountain.
But this is my point. Why put the brakes on one altogether and go full throttle on the other? Why not have both going and transition more naturally, for lack of a better word, into green power?
Because Trudeau has said this before, that he feels that the fossil industry is a dying industry and he would like Canada to be in the forefront. He has predicted that we will have no fossil fuels in this country within the next 5 or 6 years, that it'll be all gone. I mean, it's
because he will have choked it off.
Well, he just feels that the world will have. Well, we're finding out things a little bit differently today, aren't we?
Anyway, I've taken up far too much time on the show. The listener gets the spotlight here. Kevin says Canada to announce that all Navy ships go back to sail power. All right, thank you, Kevin.
No, sails. I'm sorry, many of the sails are made with oil, so we're not going to have that. You got to go back to canoes, okay? Birch bark canoes. You ever try to paddle a birch bark canoe? I have. It's not easy.
Now you're hurting trees, Lowell.
Well, no. The birch bark, if you're very careful, you can take the bark off the birch tree without killing the tree. You got to be careful. You got to know what you're doing. But and stone axes, no more metal axes. Go ahead, please. Oh, wait a minute. I have to get a word in here for Shields.
All right, let's do that.
All right. We're talking about, going back a few years. Shields goes back to 1947. Grandfather started it, father, and now the son, Mark Shield. Great business. Is particularly when it comes to appliances. Now they sell furniture, they sell technology equipment, et cetera, but they specialize in appliance. Got a huge warehouse. I still get calls on this, people saying, well, wait a minute, it's just a small store there in the main street of Pakenham. It is rather small. Oh, it's good selection in there, but huge warehouse. And I keep mentioning the fact that in Pakenham, the cost of operation, taxes, et cetera, are a little bit lower than they would be in downtown Ottawa and one of the major malls. Shields is smart enough to pass those savings along to you. Check them out, folks. They're good people. Wonderful selection. All of the major brands, all of the colors, sizes, anything that you could possibly want in appliances, Shields has got it. Shields.ca. John, back to you, my boy.
Facebook, Cheryl says, absolutely, Lowell. Couldn't agree with you more. We will never have it as long as the Liberals are in power. All right, here's a text.
Never have what? Common sense? Sanity?
All of the above, I think, is what she's referring to.
Yeah.
613-413-2217. Hi, Lowell. This action by the Russians is so horrific. It's a big bully against a smaller country. We in the West are sitting back and watching. So sad. A no-fly zone also poses all kinds of outcomes. The problem is the West appears weak. Sanctions are not the answer. Russians have lived with sanctions for years. We in NATO and the West need to stand up for humanity. Just my opinion. Phil.
Yeah, but in my opinion, the one thing we could do is bring refugees. Now, I had some people say, well, they probably won't want to come here. Are you kidding me? Many of them would prefer to stay there, I'm sure. But if you're a mother with a couple of little children and you have just walked for 30 hours and you get a chance to board a Canadian plane and be in Canada within 6 hours, you've just spent 30 hours walking and you're not going to be happy to spend 6 hours on an airplane to come to a wonderful country like this. I'm not saying that everybody, but I'm telling you that any of those refugees that want to come to Canada, we should have an open borders policy, as they have in Poland and several other countries there. If they can allow 2 million people into Poland, I don't understand why we can't allow a couple thousand here. I mean, do you know how many people crossed the border at Roxham Road during the month of December alone, illegally? No documentation, 3,000. That's roughly what it was, about 3,000 in the month of December alone. And that's fine. Trudeau says, hey, you're welcome here. It's illegal. Well, no, it's okay. It's not really illegal. It's irregular. So we allow from the United States. These people have a safe haven in the United States. We allow them, but we got to put hurdles in place for the Ukrainian. What have we got against the Ukrainians? I don't understand this. Go ahead, John.
Millions of Ukrainians have found their way here for years and years and years and are quite happy.
It's awful what we're doing. It's awful what we're doing here.
All right, Lisa says sanctions are the liberal Democrats' way of dealing with a bully. Putin must be shaking in his boots. By the way, all of the above, Cheryl said in reference to her comment earlier.
Yeah, I just want to repeat, some people may not understand. The more sanctions we impose, it seems to push the cost of gasoline and oil higher, and so the more money goes into Putin's pockets. He is laughing all the way to the bank. These sanctions are not hurting him. They are pumping extra billions of dollars into the Russian economy. Think of it. Russia is supplying millions of barrels of oil to Europe on a weekly basis, maybe a daily, I don't know. Almost 40% of Germany's oil comes from Russia. So if the price of oil goes up another $10, how much money do you think that pumps into Russia? Billions extra money. Go ahead, please.
Let's go to a text here at 613-413-2217 from Pat. Lowell, I've been saying for several years now that a government that creates a nation-building pipeline project will inspire the nation. The caveat is that a percentage of the national proceeds from the pipeline go into research for alternative energy. Everyone from left to right win in this scenario. Also, we should be expediting the process for Ukrainians.
Thank you. Good.
Let me go to this comment from Anne. It's a little long-winded, but I will take care of it. What irks me most is the hypocrisy and double standards by which this Trudeau government operates on carbon emissions. They put a 40-day delay on the Bay du Nord Newfoundland oil project, supposedly due to environmental concerns, and yet any project can be approved with absolutely no environmental assessment in Quebec.
Well, unless it's a fossil fuel. It was environmental concerns that turned down the Saguenay liquefied natural gas. 11 million tons a year of natural gas we could have shipped to Europe from there. $14 billion project, all involving Western oil. Would have provided about somewhere, they say, between 4,000 and 5,000 permanent, well-paid jobs, pumped billions of dollars into the Canadian economy. But one man, Stephen Guilbeault, says, no, it's bad for the environment. Thumbs down. Go ahead, please.
All right, we are running short on time. We got a lot of comments to get to. Kim says, speaking of Trudeau, see him with the Queen holding her hand, no mask, and she just survived COVID. The hypocrisy. Lisa loves when you swear. Craig says, and Jean Charest just announced he's running to lead the federal Conservatives. He's almost as bad as Trudeau himself. Joshua says, what impact do bullets and bombs have on environmental breathing? The air must be great for trees. Ray, new houses in Quebec are not allowed to have oil furnaces, thanks to these environmental idiots. U.S. Senator from Delaware says the U.S. should be looking to Canada and not Iran or Venezuela for gas. Terry.
That would make sense, right? Okay.
We're right next door, aren't we? Terry says, I'm not really a military strategist, but I don't think it's a good idea for President Zelensky to keep showing Putin where he lives. C says Quebec killed Energy East. Gregory says if the opposition could back the Conservatives and reform this coalition government, we can mobilize. This is a worldwide emergency.
I have to make a correction. It wasn't Quebec that killed Energy East. Quebec didn't want it, but the final decision was made by Trudeau. Trudeau imposed unbelievable restrictions. I haven't got time to go into it on Energy East, to the point where Energy East said we can't operate that way. It would be unfeasible. It was Trudeau that killed it, and he announced that he was going to. As a matter of fact, I mean, he has said that he's going to shut down the entire fossil fuel industry in this country. Go ahead, please.
Let me see. Corleen says, too bad we couldn't put a pipeline through Vermont and Maine and bypass Quebec totally. You did suggest that a couple of weeks ago on your Facebook, I think.
Yeah, whether they would approve it or not, I don't know. I would think that with the situation that we have today, that maybe the attitudes in the United States among sane people may be getting to change a little bit. Obviously, Biden is not thinking. I mean, you're right. He's appealing to Venezuela and Iran for oil when all the oil in the world is just a few miles north of him. But go ahead.
Mike says, we all think this is so crazy, but he's crazy enough to actually impose a carbon tax at a time like this.
Oh, yeah. Apparently, the carbon tax, he was asked about this. Carbon tax is still going to go ahead. We're not paying nearly enough for gasoline, folks. So on April the 1st, more carbon tax. Keep voting Liberal. Keep voting Liberal. Go ahead.
And did I hear right? It's 11 cents per liter?
Well, it's hard to tell. Actually, there are two new taxes, carbon taxes, that he's going to impose.
Oh, wonderful.
And totaling, they'll be about 11 cents a liter, right?
Let me me see. Somebody wants to talk about Pfizer. No, we're not on that today, but thank you. Eileen says, wow, Lowell, this is astonishing. What the hell are they doing to our country? Surely to God we can get rid of him next election. Robert says, World War III is bad for the environment. NATO should stand down. Anne says, for the wealth of this country...
Well, wait, now, hold it. NATO is standing down. NATO's not going to go in there. So what's the purpose of that text? Why would you spend time writing that when you know that NATO is not going in, but you avoid the real issue here that we're talking about? I find that very strange when people get off track like that. Go ahead, John.
It will be at least 11 cents per liter is a comment on Facebook. Let me see, go back to Anne here. For the wealth of this country, I find it embarrassing that we're not offering a stronger response about taking tons of refugees from Ukraine. Everything Trudeau does is political, clearly, and this is not in their agenda. Pitiful. We do have a couple of comments regarding the truckers. Gregory says, the proof of the truckers is in the pudding. What damage did the truckers create? No vandalism, no violence, no threats. How many casualties during the crackdown? It takes two to tango, and there were 0 casualties for law enforcement.
You know what I found interesting was that when Trudeau showed up at 10 Downing Street yesterday, there were all kinds of trucker protests there.
Yes.
Swearing, so much so that Trudeau had to go in the back entrance into 10 Downing. And apparently while he's meeting with Boris Johnson, the wild-haired man, they could hear these shouts of, F Trudeau outside. It's fascinating. Listen, we're right out of time, but I want to have with some very good comments today, and I really appreciate it. Don't forget, folks, you know what? Let your MP know. Don't be afraid to pick up a pen, write a letter to the editor. Once in a while, if it's anti-Trudeau, the Citizen won't publish it, but the Sun may. But try. You know what? It's the least you can do. Try. Thank you very much. We'll be back.
The Lowell Green Show is seen and heard live around the world at 2 p.m. Eastern. Connect with us online at blasttheradio.com/Lowell Green. Can't join us live? Download the Lowell Green podcast. Available on Apple, Spotify, Google, and more. Ask your smart speaker to play the Lowell Green podcast. This is a production of blasttheradio.com.